Wipe it off.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Just wipe it off. Oh, I joke, not... Wipe what off? That stupid look on your face. Man, I was waiting for the joke.
This is the Buffalo Community Podcast, all about the greatest small town in the USA, the people in it, and how it all works together. Here are your hosts, Tyler Reiss and Mark Benzer.
We're back!
We are back, and we are back. We're going to get started, and this is our very first time recording the 100th episode of the Buffalo Community Podcast. We got
Not
a lot
the
of
third.
Not the third, definitely.
Definitely not.
We'll probably explain at the end of the video why we're recording it for the third time here. But we got a lot of cool things to talk about, is kind of our journey as a podcast, Luke's entry into it, and why we've put off a certain request for so long. Now we're opening up the doors for that. But gentlemen, welcome to the century mark.
Happy 100 episodes.
Woo! We did it.
Yep.
You know, we should have dressed like the kids do for the 100th day of school and just dressed really old. Mm-hmm. You know, but if I show this to my kids, they're like, Dad, you really are old.
Yeah, they do think you're old.
Yeah. But, all right, well, century mark, let's go back to one. How did we get started as a podcast? Or why did we get started?
Sure.
Bring us back.
So why? We got started because we thought, I think, number one, it's fun, and number two, it might help us in our day jobs, in our real jobs.
Yeah.
A little bit. So, for those that don't know, Tyler is a real estate agent. I'm an insurance agent. We don't touch on that very often. It's not necessarily the focus of what we do, mostly because we want people to watch or listen to the podcast.
And Luke's a media guy. And that's
Luke,
kind
yeah.
of, telltale there.
Right. And so I think between the two, fun and, hey, maybe this is a good piece of our marketing, was the big motivation. But
sure,
it took us, how long? You can kind of go into.
Yeah, so let's go back. It's 4 years now, probably 4 or 5 years. We started a coffee group. We didn't even start it. It was a naturally occurring thing of just a few gentlemen that we were, say, hey, you guys want to meet for coffee downtown every Thursday morning? Mm-hmm. And we sat, we solved all the world's problems. We talked about, things we don't talk about here, politics, what's happening in the community.
Yep.
But it was 5 of us that sat down and, hey, we should really start a podcast. Really kind of thinking, we're probably know more than we actually do, but that was always kind of kicked around for a couple of years. And it was just really interesting conversations to have. We never came up with an agenda to talk about that morning, but we always talked about something kind of meaningful. Mm-hmm. People would come in and get their coffee, and we'd end up talking to them because we all knew them at some point. Mm-hmm. But then 2019 came along, end of the year, and we're just kind of, hey, how'd you guys' years go? Great. What are you going to do different next year? And we sat down in our schedules. It was, hey, we could do this.
Yep.
And we're like, you know what? Let's start a podcast. Let's actually do it now. I said, Mark, come to my office. We're going to record that debut. Hey, we're starting a podcast, highlighting the local people. Mm-hmm. And the rest is kind of history at that point.
Right.
We put it out there before we even had really anything lined up.
Still pinned there, right?
Yep, still pinned. And right then, we started lining up guests, and the rest was, per se, history. And I like to say that, and you said it to begin with, is had we not put that out there, that, hey, we're going to do this and tell everybody,
right.
And you came up with the plan of, you know what, we're not going to stop until we get to 25 episodes.
Right.
And that was our goal. Mm-hmm. You put that out there, but if we didn't say, hey, we're going to do it, and then we put a goal behind it, I don't think we would be here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that was the big part, was getting their feet held to the fire, holding your own feet to the fire a little bit to say, no matter how bad this is, no matter how much fun we don't have, we're not gonna quit too soon. And we kind of felt like 25 was a good number to allow ourselves an opportunity to get better.
Yep.
But if it still wasn't working or schedules changed and it was just not working out, there was an end date.
Cut ties, and then people would miss us.
Right.
But who didn't miss us was Luke. Luke reached out after the first or second episode. Is like, hey, do you want some tips? Okay, random person on the internet, but sure, we're humble enough to accept that. And so enter you. What made you reach out?
Yeah, well, my wife and I had just moved to Buffalo not that long ago. We were looking to make some connections in the town just because we didn't know very many people. And I thought, Buffalo Community Podcast, it's a great way to get to know people without actually getting to know people. Like, you just get to know more about them. And so I was like, oh, cool. And I started watching. And the more I watched, the more I'm like, you know what? These guys, the content is so good. But there were some episodes where the quality was just lacking a little bit. And this is what I do. And so I was like, oh, do you want some pointers? Do you want some just tips and ideas of how to, maybe just level that up a little bit? And I'm glad you didn't take it too hard, because I really did mean good, but I realized that in hindsight could have been offensive.
Yeah.
No, but I certainly, I guess somebody could have been offended by it, but I think
not these guys.
No. And when it's coming from the right place, the goodness of your heart, I don't think you ever have to apologize for offering your expertise. So it's funny to joke about, and sometimes we tell people in a way where we might be.
Luke said we sucked, and
Luke said we sucked, and we did help. But that's only because it's a better story that way. So hopefully you're not too offended by.
It's not too far off.
Yeah.
But one of the big things is you said, audio quality has to be much better, and then we invested in some equipment at that point, and because we were just recording on our phones and it was really tinny, we did some kind of really cheap lavalier mics at that point. And then I thought, Googling, how do we make our podcast better, because I don't believe this guy that just came into my office. But we came up and we found these, and Luke's can help us go over some of this equipment, but these pod mics from Rode, we ordered them, and I was like, we need to bring this up. Great. And then the Rodecaster Pro. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically a lot of the things that we purchased or you got initially and continuing on was to make things as painless as possible, to limit our time invested. And so this Rodecaster Pro is made so you can just kind of podcast right out of the box. You don't have to do too much to the audio to process it. It just sounds really good. A lot of this setup for video is the same. It's connected to an ATEM Mini Pro, and then I can cut the cameras live so that I don't have to go in and do a multi-camera edit afterwards. I can just cut it live, and then in the long-term idea was just how can we set ourselves up with equipment that's good, but doesn't require us to spend 3 weeks on one episode, because we just want to be able to produce content and make good content without putting a huge amount of time into the content. So it's all kind of made to be a turnkey system, so that we can just turn it on, hit record, schedule it out so we have multiple guests through the day, just have 1 day of recording for the month. And it's just made to minimize the amount of time we put into it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. We used to do this every 2 weeks. That was our goal. Mm-hmm. So we thought, oh man, it's tough. Learning anything new is tough. But that was our goal, is every 2 weeks. And then you and I would figure out our schedule, and then we'd find a guest to try and line it up with something happening in the community. And that was really difficult because people do sales at different times. And, so it was like, we can't do that. Let's just find it and just highlight stuff about them. And then it was, all right, we need to find one. And we missed a couple weeks to begin with. And it was like, oh man, we're struggling to find somebody on the timeline. We said, well, why don't we just go ahead and batch record these? Find 1 day, we're going to record 4 or 5 episodes. That way we can schedule them out. We can talk about that and really maximize our time. Oh man, I have a Reiss-like gas attack here. Sorry, I was trying so hard not to burp. But I mean, it's real. So we're scheduled out, which is great. We have people contacting us, hey, can we be on the podcast? Or say, hey, so you should have so and so on the podcast, which is a great problem to have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of brought it like full service or full circle. There's been no short of kind of communication from the community of saying, hey, we love what you're doing. Hey, how can we advertise with you? How can we sponsor this? And we've pushed that off until, up until now.
Yep. Yeah, I think a lot of it kind of boils down to a logistical thing of like, hey, we want to sponsor with you. And it's like, well, for several reasons in the past, we haven't done it, in terms of lots of reasons. But a lot of it was more logistical of like, okay, you write us a check and what are you getting? Like we didn't have a plan for that. Like you write X amount of dollars and now you're a sponsor, but what does that mean? Does that mean you get your logo on the screen, or does that mean we read a blip, or does it? So, we've developed some different advertising packages so that we have a better idea of how much X amount of dollars gets you.
Yeah.
And so I think we're more
developing. Let's be clear there. Developing.
So we're much more ready to.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of one of the big
hurdles go in that direction.
One of the big hurdles, it was one, we didn't want to be controlled on who we have on here and what we say. We didn't want to have to run it through a corporate attorney team of saying, nah, we don't really care for that. We didn't like that. Now we kind of thought, you know what? We're just going to put it out there. If it doesn't fit them, what we want, that's fine. We just won't partner. Mm-hmm. But it also has to be people that we know, like, and care about, and we actually stand behind them as sponsors. Yeah. And then on the back end, it's just another service to the community of, sponsorships is, this actually costs us money every month to do. It is, if people want to advertise with us because they seem it's a means to help them, hey, that's what we're here for, to help serve the community. So why wouldn't we? And it'd be mutually beneficial of defraying our costs that happens and helps them, and it's a win-win situation at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing was just making sure that the podcast didn't, or that not the podcast, but the sponsorships wasn't going to change
who we are
and how we do it.
Right.
And as long as everybody's on board with that, then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be saying like, oh man, that was like my throat's a little parched, and if only I had a nice ice fresh or icy cold Gatorade here,
yeah, Gatorade reached out actually.
Just absolutely like the Ricky Bobby as he spins his Red Bull can. Yeah. It's like I'm not quite sure what to do with my hands.
Right.
But so we're thrilled. We'll have some type of linkage, and you can always find us on the Buffalo Community Podcast, buffalocommunitypodcast.com, and reach out, or Luke at edlundmedia.com.
Yep, edlundmedia.com. If you want to reach out directly, it's Luke at edlundmedia.com. That's the email. We'd be happy to hear from anyone that wants to support, wants to be connected with the Buffalo Community Podcast in some way. We've been blessed by it. It's been an awesome endeavor for us, but we want to welcome that from other people within the Buffalo community as well, because the Buffalo community is so much bigger than just us. Mm-hmm. So
no question.
Yeah.
And so I mean,
come for the ride,
right? You advertise with us because you're looking to hyper focus your market to Buffalo, and I think that's Buffalo Community Podcast. We aren't Ray County Community Podcast so.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the fun things that have happened, some of the things that we've learned, and just how about some storytelling of how this podcast has changed, opportunity or just fun stories. Is there one that popped? Oh, wait, Mark, can you wipe that off? Wipe it off.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Just wipe it off. Oh, I joke, not wipe what off? That stupid look on your face. Man, I was waiting for the joke. Anyway, oftentimes, okay, I'll start with some of my fun is just I have a very dry sense of humor, and oftentimes I have to explain my jokes, just like right there, and that was a good one. But yeah, so things that have happened to us in the community because we were the Buffalo Community Podcast.
We've had a couple opportunities to like speak with the CEO class at Right Tech, which I've found valuable. For myself, I enjoy it. I enjoy sharing our journeys, kind of like what we're doing right now, but to, aspiring business owners in that setting. So I've always looked forward to and appreciated those opportunities.
Yeah. I like that.
That comes to mind. I'm sure there's others.
Yeah. How about you?
I haven't had, I'm not on the podcast as much. My face isn't on there, so I'm not recognized as, that's one of the podcast guys or anything like that. But having people walk through these doors and having people come through to be on the podcast, there's just so many connections with people who are really all for Buffalo, which is so cool to see. Buffalo's as much as some of us may hate to admit it, it's becoming a larger town. It's becoming a bigger city, and to a point where now it's almost like a little bit of a surprise for me, coming from a small town in Minnesota, where I can go to Walmart or Target and see someone I recognize. Not having lived here that long, that's exciting for me. That's really fun. Yeah. And so that's really cool, being able to just have the consistency of meeting new people, not just new people, but new people that love Buffalo, that are excited about the town and where it's headed and where it's come from. So yeah, that's been awesome.
Cool.
I think some cool things is we've been asked to be a part of some focus groups because of our outreach to the community, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it's well deserved, but the town seems like we're a good resource of getting that word out. But I'm often surprised by the recognition of, hey, it's those podcast guys. I always tell the story, and I've told it 3 times now. Mark and I were golfing in the Green Bean Open or the Chamber Open, whatever it was, and it was right after Pugs was on for the first time, and we come walking up to register for the tournament. Tournament. We're not golfers. But it was like, hey, it's the podcast guys. And I was just like, wow, I don't know you, man, but right on we are.
Sure.
I also sell real estate.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. I was also at Culver's the other day, about a month ago, and she brings my bag out and she goes, "Oh, are you that guy, the Facebook guy on Facebook, the podcast guy?" Yeah. Oh, I love it. I watch it all the time. So I was like, wow, I either come to Culver's too much, or this is actually it's fun to be recognized. I like that. But I'd say more importantly is I like to hear the success stories of our guests. Probably none more so than, I don't say none more so, but one of my favorite is CK Seafoods. Yeah. And that was way back when our audio was horrible, our video was terrible, but the content was awesome. Paul and Lori.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I hear about most.
Yeah. And you told me CK Seafoods is coming in for an interview, their seafood place in Buffalo. And I said, well, there is no seafood place in Buffalo. Yeah. So something's
good one, Tyler. It's one of those bad jokes you have to explain to me.
Yeah. But they come in. Sure enough, there is a seafood place in Buffalo.
Yep.
And we have a great interview with them, getting to know them, and got quite a bit of feedback from people for quite a while after recording and releasing.
Yeah.
That they were reaching out to them and calling them, and got some feedback from them saying it was definitely worth their while to come in and tell their story. So that was definitely one of the big aha moments of man, we're just getting our feet wet with this, and people are seeing it, and exactly what we want to accomplish is happening. So that was good confirmation.
Yeah. I don't think we could have started with a better guest than Tim and Patty Speckle. Either they were my first employer. I mean, everybody knows Tim and Patty.
Right.
So actually, I want everybody to go back and watch that please disregard the bad audio, the bad video, but the content is absolutely perfect. And find out what Tim Speckle's dream job was, or what he'd be doing if he wasn't doing landscaping.
Right.
I'm going to leave it at that.
And then leave it in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll send you a gift card or something.
Yeah. I always appreciate that.
Yeah. Tyler will.
Yeah, that's great. And also we'd want to thank everybody that has reached out and commented and shared, and we always are appreciative of that. Luke especially coming along. I mean, he's really, really upped this game. If you're looking for, media production, Luke's a great guy to do that. Which kind of transitions me into what's one thing that we always seem to discover when we talk to somebody or when we stop talking to somebody. Camera shut off.
Sure. Yeah, I think what we've found out and what we're working on, right?
Yeah.
Always trying to get better, right, at what we do, is that conversation tends to get a lot better and more. I don't want to say. It gets better when the cameras are off and we say, "Hey, okay, that was a good episode, nice job." Typically, guests stick around for 10 or 15 minutes afterwards, or more, depending upon
Yeah.
And then the conversation continues, and almost 100% of the time, you realize we shouldn't have quit recording.
Yeah.
Because this is even better than what we did record.
And it's really hard because most people aren't used to having a camera kind of shoved in their face. We've got this gigantic 4-foot light right above us, making us look really sharp.
Yeah.
But it is intimidating, when you have to hear it and you hear your own voice is always kind of cool. And I think people do kind of like, ooh. But even we've had some repeat guests that seem to be way more comfortable the second time when they realized, oh, that wasn't the worst thing in the world.
Right.
But the second the cameras turn off, we hear that extra story. And one, I'm going to take full blame on this, is one of our past guests. It was Tony Kramer's, the foundry in Montrose. They had actually cast a motorcycle for Polaris. Polaris said, hey, we want to do this. Can you do this? Can you get it done? They did it in 5 weeks, which is huge, one-piece motorcycle. And my question came to me, was like, is it still in production? But I thought, no, I don't want to embarrass him if it wasn't in production. I was like, okay, so I'll ask him when we're off the air. Cameras turn off. I ask him, and he goes, no, it's not in production. It just wasn't feasible for Polaris to do that. But we actually won a world, award for what we did, which is a way more awesome story that came through. So that's going to be my pledge to every guest here. I'm going to ask the question, even if it might be embarrassing. Why should I be the one that kind of limits your story? I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that guy.
And if you're genuinely curious, I think for the most part, it's maybe there's a time when you're genuinely curious about something you don't ask, but I think, absolutely, is just trying to figure out why the conversation gets so much better when the cameras shut off, and how can we get better when the cameras are on is always something we're striving for. So,
and we're still not sure if Luke is going to work out, if we're going to keep his mic live or not, or if he's just going to be that radio guy that's going to have about this much audio in the back and just start laughing like,
gotta have a laugh guy.
Gotta get the laugh track in. So
someone's got to laugh at your jokes.
Right.
Hey-o. if I'm making that stupid face, I'm joking. Just start laughing.
We do have a laugh track, don't we?
My dad will get it. Yeah, I think it's... that's awesome. That's a knee slapper.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate all of that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, what's our next goal? I don't even think we have a ceiling goal. I think it's just let's just keep doing it until it's no longer fun and it no longer serves the community.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
Not going to go out on top. You just want to do it till we can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
Till they kick us off later.
Kick us off.
Because the fact that our 100th episode is really maybe like our 107th production
Right.
Of it, but we've got to go back. We were saving, 100 for us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I always appreciate that. So, any final words to all 250,000 viewers that we've got?
Well, if you have enjoyed the last 100 episodes, make sure that you actually follow along. And so if you're not already following us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook. If you're not already subscribed on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. If you want to be a part of the conversation, or if there's guests that you haven't seen on or that have been on and you really liked and want to see them come back on, put them down in the comments, tag them, do all the things that social media wants you to do to get us in the algorithm, to push us out to other people.
Yep.
And if you're interested in sponsoring, be sure to reach out. We would love to see what we can do to be mutually beneficial to the community, to you, and to the podcast here.
Awesome. For the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Tyler Reiss.
I'm Mark Benzer.
Luke Edlund.
Thanks for listening to the Buffalo Community Podcast, produced by Edlund Media. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts.